Hello everyone, Emerin Hilda Nachibende here once again. Hope you're doing great. This week we are going to talk about borderless favor. Like that favor without limit, without borders, like in the villages, in towns, in Uganda, in the US, in Nairobi, wherever you go, SA, what, God's favor is all over you. Like God's favor is attached to your name. So no matter where you are, no matter what borders you're crossing, the favor of God is just moving with you. In the Bible, who do we look at that has this favor, that is filled with this favor? According to me, when I read the story of Ruth, the whole Ruth book, it just has only 4 chapters, but we see that Naomi was with her husband in a foreign land, got married there, had 2 sons. The sons got married. Then, after some time, that husband died, the sons died. They left her with her 2 daughters-in-law that are of a different race. So, yeah, she decides to come back to her homeland, and she begs her daughters-in-law to stay with their mothers in their area also. And at first they refuse. Then after some time, one of them decides to stay, and then Ruth goes with her mother-in-law to Naomi's land. So to Ruth, this is a new place, this is new land. The only connection she has in this land is Naomi, who is a widow, what she's grieving and all that. And at this point, Naomi feels like the world has ended, because we see that when people see her coming back, they are excited and they start asking themselves, "Isn't that Naomi?" And then she says, "Do not call me Naomi, because God God has left me." That's what she says when people are trying to welcome her back. But guess what? It was just the beginning of God's open doors. So they come and they have nothing at first. Then after some time, Ruth offers to go and is it like pick out, after people have done farming, pick out the remainders, the rubbish, sort of, so that she can pick out the good things in those remainders. Okay, we will not call them rubbish, remainders. So the favor of God is with her, because that's the farm she goes to, the land she goes to is Boaz's land. Boaz is a distant relative to Ruth. Okay, let's say to Naomi, which makes him a distant relative to Ruth. So by the time she goes, she does not know, she's not aware of all this history. She just goes and helps. And God places her at the exact place she needs to be. Because when God's favor is upon you, when you're doing things according to God's will, He's going to place you exact place at the exact time. Because check this out. When she goes to this land, the big man, Boaz, comes to check on his laborers and spots Ruth. And when he asks who she is, the permanent staff refer to her as the foreign woman that came with Naomi. Can you imagine? So she's in foreign land, no one knows her, she's nothing. But Boaz favors her. Boaz tells her, in case you're tired, you can go and drink some water. Remember, she's not one of his servants. She's just someone supposed to work after the servants have worked. He also offers to put her, to associate her with his female laborers, so that she does not have to only take the crops from what they have worked. He goes ahead and also, since she's speaking rubbish, he goes ahead and tells his laborers that when you're working in the rubbish, leave a few good food. Like when you're harvesting, harvest some of the good food and leave it as rubbish, so she gets some of the good food. Can you imagine? So she started going back home with a lot more than she expected to have, because they used to leave things for her, but she was unaware of what was going on. So God's favor was upon her. For her, she thought she's going to work so hard. She's going to, start from scratch, but she was not starting from scratch. God positioned her to meet a distant relative. And even before that distant relative knew that they are maybe related or something, or even before he picked interest in her, God positioned his heart to favor her among other servants. Because I do not think Ruth was the only one doing this in the whole farmland. But Boaz favored her. When he looked east, west, south, north, his eyes got to her. So, in wherever we go, may God just position us to meet the right people, to just walk in front of the right people, so that when they are looking for who to position, for who to pull up, you're right there. God has positioned you. Favor has filled your presence. Like, people's hearts are soft. The bosses are soft on you. The supervisors are soft on you. God's favor leads you everywhere you go. Because now, when you're favored by God, God paves way for you. When you're favored by God, things that come hard, in a hard form to other people, come softly to you when you're favored by God. When you're favored by God, He gives you the grace not to give up. We see Naomi had given up. In verse 2, chapter 20, Naomi had given up because of the loss she had suffered. But we see that God had plans for her. God, because we see that when later on, when Ruth gets married to Boaz, she has a son, and when she has a son, people come and congratulate Naomi. The son was called Obed, but people like the people in the I think in their area used to call him Naomi's very own son, and they make comments that Ruth is better off than 7 sons. Remember, Naomi had lost 2 children. Nothing compares to losing your own children. But then, if when something happens and you give up totally, God lifts you up with something that is going to comfort you a bit, because he did not bring back the exact children, but then he gave her something that compares to 7 sons. And also, better still, in their tradition back then, when a man dies, the wife, the widow, can get married to one of his relatives, and the children that they have at that time will be considered as his own. So his lineage will not be stopped. At some point, Naomi was worried because her sons had not had children, so their name had stopped, their lineage had stopped. But guess what? Naomi gives birth to a baby boy. He gives birth to a baby boy, and the lineage is just great and great and great, because Obed gives birth to someone, and then Obed is the grandfather of David. So great things happened in mysterious ways, because I don't think they would even have imagined. I don't think that Naomi had ever imagined that she's going to go to this foreign land where people identify her as the foreign woman that came with Naomi. I don't think Ruth had imagined that she would be in a foreign land, foreign status, doing the cheap work, and then God will lift her to get married to one of the wealthiest men in the area, and also have a son who's going to give birth, who's going to start a lineage of great, great, great men of God. So, when you're feeling down, what do? You trust in God. You just know that God is going to comfort you. When you're at a loss of something, just take it as though it is God's will, as long as you're following God's will. Take it as though it's God's will, because He's going to comfort you. He's going to plaster your wounds. He's going to plaster your wounds. He's going to lead you to places and position you in ways you don't think possible, because no one would have done this. Only God. Only God would give Naomi the wisdom to go where she needed to go. Only God gave Ruth the direction and the wisdom to go to the specific land that she needed to be at the specific time. Only God put a little favor in Boaz's heart to favor Ruth. Because even when we see, when Naomi advises Ruth to go and ask and um, and tell Boaz of how they are relatives, and so he can marry her. It is still by God's grace that Boaz did not take advantage of Ruth. He did everything as they were supposed to do it in their tradition back then. He went in the, is it their town square or something, town center, and called the immediate relative, gave in a proposal, and when he declined, then he was the relative next that could marry Ruth. Nowadays, people just take advantage of things, but we see that Boaz did everything in respect to his family and in respect to God. So, this week, what's my prayer for you? My prayer for you and for myself is that God favors us. God favors our names even before we present ourselves. God favors each and everything that has to do and that is connected to us. We pray that God positions us to be in the right place at the right time with the right people. We pray that God directs us, because God's direction is the only direction that made Ruth stick to Naomi, that me, I am going with you to your people. Your people are my people. That's what she told her mother-in-law. When the mother-in-law was trying to tell her, no, you go back to your mother, she said, no, your people are my people. I will go wherever you will go. Can you imagine? Some people will be like, me, I'm going back to my parents and get remarried. No, God had other plans, and no, and Ruth followed those plans. So that's my prayer for you today. Have a nice week. Bye bye. God bless you.